Good morning, Your Excellency.
Хорошо. Hello, can you hear me?
Very well. Good morning.
Yes, bom dia.
Bom dia.
So are we waiting for somebody else?
Your Excellency, we were just waiting for you and to get settled so we can start. Unfortunately, Ambassador Freitas Ferraz is sick with COVID, so he won't be able to make it to this meeting, unfortunately. He's not doing very well, unfortunately.
Oh, please pass our best to him.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you so much. So if you'll allow me, I'll present myself. I'm Joana Gaspar, and I'm the head of the Center for Strategic Studies of the Diplomatic Institute. And I'll do my best to replace Ambassador Freitas Ferraz during this session. So I just wanting to say welcome to everyone to this webinar on Kazakhstan as a regional pivot, and explain that this webinar came as the first step of the implementation of the Memorandum of Understanding that was signed between the Diplomatic Institute of Portugal and the Academy of Public Administration of Kazakhstan. And that happened precisely at the moment where Your Excellency Minister Vassilenko went to Lisbon for bilateral consults. And so I'm honored to give you the floor, Mr. Minister.
Muito obrigado, obrigadissimo, even. Thank you very much for organizing this event. Indeed, this idea was born when we had a meeting with Ambassador Ferraz, and I am very happy that this MOU is beginning to live its own life, and you have a contact with the Academy of Diplomacy at the State Academy, Academy of State Management of Kazakhstan, who I understand are also joining us today, and there are many students from that academy on the Kazakh side, and I hope that there are many also participants from the Portuguese side. We just don't see them on the screen, but I hope they are there and they're listening to us. So thank you very much in general for organizing this. And again, our best wishes to Ambassador Ferraz, and hope that next time we will see him in one of the follow-up meetings that perhaps we can have on a regular basis. I was asked to speak a little bit on the Kazakhstan as a regional pivot. And I'd like to say that Kazakhstan's foreign policy is rooted in the historical legacy of steppe diplomacy of our ancestors, which has served them rather well over centuries in the vast expanses of Eurasia. Since independence in 1991, we have fostered a stable network of relations with the global community of nations and international organizations based on the principles of mutually beneficial cooperation and pragmatism. Today, Kazakhstan maintains diplomatic relations with 186 countries, and the geography of our diplomatic presence covers 70 countries, all in all 105 foreign missions. In turn, here in Astana, we have 71 embassies and representatives of 30 international organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I'd like to say that we consistently adhere to a course based on a multi-vector approach, balance, pragmatism, and protection of national interests in our foreign policy. The geographical location of Kazakhstan in the heart of Eurasia predetermined the development of our relations with other nations. Ever since our independence, we seek to become a bridge and connect between East and West, North and South, and connect those parts. And our foreign policy and our foreign economic efforts are aligned with this goal. Speaking of Central Asia, Astana is committed to deepening regional cooperation in Central Asia, a region that was traditionally in the very center of the Silk Road of the past, until the maritime discoveries made it obsolete. Thank you to our Portuguese friends. And today the region is increasingly playing a larger role in today's world as the Asia and the Asian part and the European part of the continent seek to reconnect with each other over land, not just by sea. The Treaty on Friendship, Good Neighborliness and Cooperation for the Development of Central Asia in the 21st Century, signed in July 2022, is intended to be the basis for this development of our region of Central Asia. We believe the region should be more integrated and open through a system of transport and trade routes in all directions. And this is the aim of the work of the five-sided dialogue process at the highest level, which we all, the 5 countries, resumed since 2018. And we seek to combine our common potential to solve the problems of the region's development. The results of the most recent 4th consultative meeting of the heads of state of Central Asia in Kyrgyzstan in July this year opened a new page in the development of this regional cooperation. Now I'd like to say a few words about our relations with the countries in the region, because I think that those relations are of interest to our Portuguese friends. Our president paid his first state visit as a new president in 2019 to Uzbekistan. In December last year, President Mirziyoyev of Uzbekistan was in Kazakhstan on a state visit. He was recently in Kazakhstan for several events, including the most recent meeting of the Central Asian leaders with Charles Michel last week in Kazakhstan. And the allied nature of our relations with Uzbekistan is an important factor in ensuring regional stability and promoting regional cooperation. With Uzbekistan, we see eye to eye on many issues of regional cooperation, and we push for that cooperation together. Last May, our president visited Kyrgyzstan, and at that visit, he and his Kyrgyz counterparts reaffirmed our common commitment to a strategic course towards comprehensive strengthening of bilateral relations in the spirit of good neighborliness and genuine alliance. Relations with Tajikistan, with whom we do not have a common border, are developing based on mutual respect, support, understanding, and friendship. And during the official visit of our president to Dushanbe, Tajik capital, in May 2021, we agreed to increase our trade volume almost by a factor of 2 to $2 billion US. And President Rahmon recently visited Astana also several times, including for the SICA summit, for the meeting of the CIS, for meeting with of Central Asia plus Russia format, and of course for the meeting with Charles Michel last week. Our strategic partnership with Turkmenistan is also deepening. In the last year alone, we exchanged 2 state visits, and during a recent meeting in Astana, President Tokayev and President Berdimuhamedov discussed a wide range of issues, including maintaining regional security and stability in the Caspian region. Kazakhstan, speaking of our other neighbors, of course, bigger neighbors, this is Russia and China. Kazakhstan and Russia are linked by deep political, trade, and economic, cultural, and humanitarian ties. And the strategic nature of our relations is predetermined by the common history of more than 300 years, as well as the world's longest contiguous land border, over 7,500 kilometers. Russia accounts for almost a quarter of Kazakhstan's total foreign trade turnover and accounts for 40% of our imports. So you can imagine the importance of these relations for our country. On September the 14th of this year, Chinese President Xi Jinping paid a state visit to Kazakhstan, which was his first trip outside of China since the start of the pandemics, and which infused a new spirit in our relations, which we call a comprehensive eternal strategic partnership. We believe that the integration of various infrastructure projects, such as the Eurasian integration and the Belt and Road Initiative that was put forward by Xi Jinping actually in Astana 9 years ago, will contribute to sustainable economic growth throughout the Eurasian continent. Today, we're also building a new stage of relations with the United States, and we are focused on ensuring mutually beneficial cooperation in the field of security, trade, and investment. The order in which I outlined this importance of this cooperation is reflected in our concept of foreign policy for 2020-2030, which remains in place despite the geopolitical turbulence, and which remains the guiding compass for our foreign policy during these turbulent times. Let me say a few words. I will come back to the relations with the European Union, which of course is another leg of the multi-vector foreign policy of Kazakhstan. But for now, I'd like to speak about the economic diplomacy and the role that Kazakhstan seeks to play in benefiting from its geographical position in Central Asia and in the heart of Eurasia. Over the years of independence, Kazakhstan has attracted more than $390 billion in foreign direct investment. Over the next 7 years, we plan to attract approximately $150 billion more in FDI. By 2020, that was the last year when the World Bank was doing that rating of doing business. Kazakhstan rose to the 25th place in that rating. In the Global Competitiveness Index of the World Economic Forum, our country is currently ranked at the 55th position. And in the next 5 years, we plan to significantly improve these positions. We are consistently working to strengthen and improve our investment attractiveness. Last June, 4 months ago, the government of Kazakhstan approved a new investment policy concept until 2026 in an important step which aims to attract ESG investors and to develop the non-resource sector of the economy. In fact, Kazakhstan's economy is the most integrated of all other economies in Central Asia into the global financial processes. And we expect Kazakhstan's real GDP growth to be more than 4% in the 2023-2025. This year, it is slowing down, I must admit. And in the first 9 months of this year, the economy has grown 2.8%, which is below the numbers which were forecast in the beginning of this year. But naturally, we are connected by numerous ties to Russia. And since Russian economy is facing very strong headwinds due to the Western sanctions, then Kazakh economy will too have face consequences. Still, we plan to continue to develop our economy, and important areas include the development of the Astana International Financial Center as a financial hub in Central Asia. It is a place now where 1,500 foreign companies from 65 countries have found their home, have registered, and are benefiting from the unique financial conditions and legal conditions, because this center is ruled by the English common law. We changed the constitution for it to be able to operate under the English common law. The other institution is the Astana Hub of IT startups, and it's there are plans to develop it as the largest international technology park in our region. At the same time, the government is planning to naturally invest in development of our transport infrastructure to make Kazakhstan real hub in the heart of Eurasia for transcontinental transportation. We also consider digitalization as a tool to combat bureaucracy, corruption, and inefficiency. And recognizing the need for digital transformation, Kazakhstan is making every effort to attract the most high-tech companies to the country. And currently about 700 IT companies are looking to relocate to Kazakhstan. In terms of the level of digitalization of the population, Kazakhstan ranks 15th in the world. And this is one of the strongest indicators in the rating of electronic participation of citizens. In the e-government development index, our country is ranked 28th out of 193 countries. Among our priorities is joining the Organization for Security and for Economic Cooperation and Development, hopefully by 2025. We are, as I mentioned earlier, consistently working to strengthen our transit and logistics potential. In that regard, the development of the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route, or the Middle Corridor, is of key importance for us, and we plan to invest another $20 billion in the transport industry by 2025. Already today, 13 international railway and automobile corridors pass through the territory of Kazakhstan, providing high speed of cargo movement in the direction of east-west, north-south. For example, there are routes linking Lianyungan, a port in China, with Duisburg in Germany, or there is a route from Yiwu in China to London. Kazakhstan has acted as a driving force of integration processes in Eurasia, and we have been actively working in recent years on the incorporation and cooperation between various Eurasian initiatives. I mean the Eurasian Economic Union, the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, the economic dimension of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the same dimension of ASEAN. And this corresponds to our vision for the region's further development, building relations in Eurasia on the principle of win-win, where the interests of both internal and external players can be and will be harmoniously combined. Ladies and gentlemen, let me turn to our relations to the European Union, and it is indeed one of our foreign policy priorities to strengthen these relations. The EU is the largest investor in Kazakh economy, with a total volume of FDI ranging $170 billion. And the EU is also our largest trading partner, taken as a bloc of 27 members. Kazakhstan became the first and so far the only country in Central Asia to sign and ratify an enhanced partnership and cooperation agreement. This is a huge document of 300 pages and an enormous number of articles. And it was signed with the EU in 2015 and entered into full force in 2020. It covers 29 areas of cooperation, and it creates for a very robust framework of our cooperation. And regular high-level contacts strengthen opportunities for the development of a comprehensive dialogue between Kazakhstan and the EU. As I mentioned last week, the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, visited Astana. He also took part in the first Central Asia European Union Forum, with the participation of the heads of Central Asian states. And 10 days ago, our president had a video conference with President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and they agreed that in the next few weeks, Kazakhstan and the European Union will sign an MOU on cooperation in the rare earth metals, which is another top priority in our bilateral relations, in addition to transport and to traditional sources of energy. Let me say a few words about our relations with Portugal. Of course, I should mention the 30th anniversary of the diplomatic relations, which we celebrated in August. And over the past 3 decades, our countries have established close ties in the political, trade, economic, and cultural and humanitarian spheres. Our embassy, our full embassy, opened in Lisbon in 2019, which contributed to the intensification of our bilateral contacts. And earlier this year, we were happy to welcome Portugal's first resident ambassador in Astana, Madame Maria Fatima Mendes. Kazakhstan and Portugal, we think, still do not fully utilize the existing economic potential of our cooperation. As I mentioned in an interview with Noticias, what's the full name of this newspaper? Noticias.
Diário de Notícias?
Yes, I think so.
Diário de Notícias.
Diário de Notícias, yes. In September, the Portuguese have discovered Kazakhstan. The Kazakhs have not yet discovered the benefits of doing business with Portugal, because there are Portuguese companies in Kazakhstan, Portuguese investors. And for Portuguese investors, Kazakhstan can act as a convenient entry point to the markets of Central Asia, the Eurasian Economic Union, and China. Portugal is, according to our thinking, well positioned to expand its presence in our region, especially in the areas of renewable energy, green technologies, light industry, aquaculture, and tourism. Dear colleagues, and especially the soon-to-be foreign service professionals on the Portuguese side and on the Kazakh side, the modern world has unfortunately entered a very precarious period of serious international tensions and disruptions, where sanctions and confrontational approaches to solving key global problems have come to the fore. State borders are being reshaped, territorial disputes are escalating, and previously frozen conflicts or cold conflicts are once again becoming active and hot. And today, we firmly believe diplomacy is the main tool for managing international relations, reducing risks and resolving crises, and seizing opportunities to strengthen bilateral and multilateral ties. And surely a new generation of diplomats will play a decisive role in this noble cause. In conclusion, I'd like to wish all the participants of the webinar a productive session, and may your current and future work meet with success. And we certainly hope that you will contribute to the strengthening of the international stature of Portugal and of Kazakhstan, and of strengthening and contribute to the strengthening of our bilateral relations as well. Thank you for your attention. I'll be happy to participate in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. It was lovely to hear you. Exactly as you said, it is a shame that we are so not well known from each other. So this is one step towards getting to know each other better. And I'm sure that your words were very impressive, mostly for Portuguese people who don't specifically know very well Kazakhstan. It's impressive your growing rate of 2.8 for this year, with all the crises that were going on, and your regional relations are exactly we can see how you are becoming a regional contributor to regional peace and to world peace, and that for us is very interesting. Thank you so much. Would you allow me? I understand that the rector of the Academy of Public Administration would like to say some words, and then we will proceed with our keynote speakers. But I don't know if I have the correct message that Mr. Yerlan Abil would like to intervene. Is that correct?
Yes. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much.
I am very glad to welcome you to the webinar dedicated to the regional role of Kazakhstan. Let me express my gratitude to our colleagues from the Diplomatic Institute of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Portugal for the initiative and co-organization. And I also express gratitude for the support of bilateral relations to the Ministries of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan and Portugal. Since the declaration of independence, the Republic of Kazakhstan has marked the course for a multi-vectoral foreign policy, becoming a full member of the world community. Our country has become a generally recognized leader in the Central Asian region. Kazakhstan's initiatives are supported by the leaders of the world's leading states and major international organizations. Being the center of Eurasia, located in the important geopolitical position, Kazakhstan represents as a link between the West and the East. Over the years, our country has acted as a dialogue platform for the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, summits of the OSCE, etc. The power of creation and unification is reflected in the Eurasian integration. The whole world knows the peacekeeping role of Kazakhstan. Astana has become a platform for the peaceful settlement of the Syrian conflict. The Republic of Kazakhstan is also actively promoting cultural diplomacy, building strong cultural and humanitarian ties. Our students have the opportunity to study in foreign universities, both under the presidential program Bolashak and within the framework of intergovernmental agreements. The interest of foreign citizens in Kazakhstani higher education is growing. It is very pleasant that the Academy of Public Administration and the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan also contributes to the internationalization of Kazakhstani education. Civil servants from Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Mongolia, Turkey, Ukraine, and the Republic of Maldives were trained in the academy. We are open to cooperation in improving the education and professional development of civil servants. Today, undergraduates and doctoral students, faculty, and researchers of the Academy are participating in the webinar. I am sincerely sure that in the conditions of the global turbulence of the post-pandemic world, our event will form a new level of synergy between the expert community of Kazakhstan and Portugal. Thank you for attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your intervention. I do hope that this webinar will give inspiration to more researchers, more students to deepen their mutual knowledge on Portuguese Kazakh relations, or even our two regions relations. There's so much to be done. So now to proceed to our keynote speakers, what I suggest that we do is that we listen to them both, and then we open the floor for questions from the audience that can either be spoken with the tool of raising your hand, or written in the chat box. So maybe I will present them both, and then give them the floor. So Professor Marcos Farias Ferreira is our Portuguese speaker. He's a professor and a researcher at the Social and Political Studies Institute of the University of Lisbon, actually my university, so I'm very proud to have him. He has a master's degree in international politics from Aberystwyth University and a PhD in social science specialization in international relations from the University of Lisbon. His research fields include critical theory, international relations theory, global security and Russia, and post-Soviet era. Professor Marcos Ferreira is also a political analyst in several media and advisor in international organizations. Regarding our Kazakh keynote speaker, Mr. Timur Shaimergenov, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, if not, excuse me, is a professor and researcher at the Institute of Diplomacy of the Academy of Public Administration of Kazakhstan. He has a PhD in policy from the Institute of International Professions of Almaty and participated in several educational programs in the USA. He was chairman of the International Information Committee of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and between 2018-2019, Deputy Minister of Defense and Aerospace Industry. Between 2011-2014, he was head of the analytical sector of the Situational Center of the Security Council of Kazakhstan. He is the author of several scientific publications and monographs. So thank you so much, both of you, for accepting our invitation. I am sure that your lectures will be of the utmost interest for all the students, Portuguese and Kazakh students that are listening to us today. It is an honor to have you, and I'll give the floor right away to Professor Marcos Ferreira. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency Minister Roman Vassilenko, Your Excellency Ambassador José de Freitas Ferraz, Your Excellency Rector Yerlan Abil, dear colleague Dr. Timur Shaimergenov, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to be present at this event, exactly 10 years after I was in Central Asia doing research, accompanying also a PhD student, and we visited Almaty, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. It was really a pleasure for me to work there, to spend almost a month doing research and doing interviews for this PhD research. But the reflection I would like to share with you today is entitled Central Asia in 2022, Managing a Complex and Risky Geopolitical Context on Behalf of Regional Stability, Security and Development. So I will proceed now. 3 decades have already passed since the formal disintegration of the Soviet Union. The new sovereign entities in the post-Soviet space are still dealing, albeit in a tragic and violent way these days, with what the Ukrainian political scientist Taras Kuzio has called the quadruple transition away from the Soviet regime. Generally speaking, the bibliography on political and economic transitions has approached the 5 Central Asian states that formed with the breakup of the USSR as absolutely new entities, a kind of political tabula rasa, as it were, without much concern to previous cultural and statehood traditions, nor to the social and political workings within the institutions creating during the Soviet era. Thus, they have been portrayed generally and in a patronizing way as fragile entities, states, incapable of generating the necessary consensus to build integrated modern polities and markets, or even putting in place coherent strategies to guide them in responding to the challenges of a complex environment that at the regional level, as well as the broader international level, presents opportunities for development, but also threats to security and stability. Since independence, the Central Asian states have joined a wide range of international and regional organizations, but as many authors have claimed, they have been unable to avoid regional distrust and to work in significant ways to devise and coordinate common interests. They have been unable to form a coherent group in order to maximize intra-regional dynamics and produce development, security, and stability on the one hand, and on the other hand, they have not developed all the leverage they could vis-à-vis the great powers. As we have just listened to the minister speak, this is changing a bit, but I think this description still holds true for now. Therefore, the last 30 years have left us with a fragmented Central Asia, prey to the interests of the great powers that deal with these 5 states with a new great game logic, mostly divide and rule, whose main intent is that of consolidating hegemony or power sharing between them or among them, but seldom considers intra-regional priorities per se. This presents a most complex situation for our Central Asian leaders, I think. a fact that must not be forgotten by outsiders, academics or policymakers from the West, as we are in the context of a debate between Kazakhstan and Portugal. Therefore, I would like to argue today that politics and policies, and political analysis for that matter, in and about Central Asia, must take into account and start from the basic geopolitical fact that Russia and China have special interests in Central Asia, but also that regional dynamics have a lot to gain from the consolidation of organizations in which the various interests are represented and can be voiced openly. Now, I do not buy completely into the more liberal agenda according to which international organizations can be understood as political mechanisms apart from power games and great power interests. However, and according to a more constructivist thesis, I do concede that these fora can be put to work as tools of interest and even identity transformation in the mid-longer term. In the case of Central Asia, regional groupings serve the primary purpose of reinforcing predictability, even before discussing interests and interest coordination. Russia and China are very pragmatic powers, as all great powers are, and having fora where it is possible to assess the intentions and interests of both of them is critical for Central Asian leaders in their political calculations. Being able to take advantage of what neighbor great powers have to offer from their cooperative policies, both in bilateral and multilateral agreements, is key for structuring foreign policy by medium or lesser powers that need to navigate complex geopolitical contexts presenting big risks. Although it is possible and desirable to envision regional integration in Central Asia according to the European integration model, one must bear in mind the specificities and complexities of the geopolitical context and recognize that the first step for the stability of the region must lie in the very cooperative stance taken by Russia and China and the progressive broadening of their security development agenda in the region that empowers and gives agency to local agents, priorities, and solutions. On the one hand, a purely power politics approach to regional relations in Central Asia is dangerous for putting too much reliance on precarious and mechanical balance of power mechanisms, devoid of a longer-term vision of what the region aims to be and achieve as a whole, as a security development community. On the other hand, a more liberal approach to regional integration risks being utopian in the sense that it overlooks the tangible obstacles of great power balancing competition and could thereby increase all sorts of political tensions if it does not follow a consensualized process or is not seen by minor partners as allowing for the consolidation of state agency. Therefore, and taking in consideration the realities, risks and challenges developing in the last 30 years, which Central Asian statehood must face seriously, both domestically and regionally, cooperation and integration must follow a model that allows for the consolidation and transparency of state institutions, the social compact, and therefore redistribution within, and at the same time regional convergence, both political and material infrastructural, and the progressive alleviation of post-Soviet tensions. At the same time, cooperation and integration in Central Asia must constitute as a framework for accommodating and stabilizing great power interests, China and Russia mainly, in a way that increases the leverage and agency of the 5 Central Asian states as a group. Authors have described protective integration as a way of putting in place macro-regional frameworks for collective political solidarity, regime protection, and bandwagoning with Russia and China. Instead, what I call pragmatic integration is, for most, a framework for regional stability in the relations among the 5 Central Asian states and between them and great powers. It is a macro structure intent on avoiding great power imbalances, as well as providing agency to the Central Asian states, thereby contributing to the production of security and development in different layers, local, regional, but also international. On the same page, domestic change, modernization, state consolidation can be envisaged as the product of the deepening regional dynamics in the mid-longer term, but always as an intrinsic process springing from the opening up of debate and political participation involving state officials and civil society. State officials throughout Central Asia must recognize that transparency, modernization, and the progressive opening up of political competition, all of these increase the chances for stability, security, and development, both locally and regionally. While exogenous models of modernization should be approached with suspicion, Central Asian societies must come up with a local model of modernization, springing from shared traditions that empowers citizens and civil society at the same time that it consolidates statehood and produces long-term stability and development. Finally, it is important to underline the absolute centrality of the so-called water, energy, and food nexus as a crucial domain for seeking regional collaboration on regional stability through common security and development. A benefit-sharing scheme was in place among the Central Asian republics in the Soviet Union, but since independence in 1991, unilateral action has been the norm. Instead, a reinforced and pragmatic regional integrative approach would be beneficial for societies and states across Central Asia in a number of processes linking water security to energy and food security, which is the basis for sustainable development, human security, and social justice. Collaborative strategies include exploring and enhancing existing frameworks with a focus on additional investment for coherent regional projects in areas such as hydropower generation and green energy resources, power market development, irrigation reforms, equitable and balanced regional food markets, and infrastructural integration, among others, as well as ways of addressing and managing regional environment public goods like water flows and water quality. This kind of collaborative framework is based on a well-established research agenda about policy choice that focuses on the uneven spatial distribution of water, land, and energy assets and their interconnectedness in Central Asia. According to this agenda, the issues to explore include which parts of the benefit-sharing approach used during the Soviet times could be viable in the political economy of today, how do sovereign agendas influence
O professor ficou sem som. Desligou o microfone. Continuamos sem ouvir.
For some reason, my microphone went off. I don't know why. So I will resume from this. So collaborative strategies in this domain include exploring and enhancing existing frameworks with a focus on additional investment for coherent regional projects in areas such as hydropower generation and green energy resources, power market development, irrigation reforms, equitable and balanced regional food markets and infrastructural integration, among others, as well as ways of addressing and managing regional environment public goods like water flows and water quality. This kind of collaborative framework is based on a well-established research agenda about policy choice that focuses on the uneven spatial distribution of water, land, and energy assets and their interconnectedness in Central Asia. According to this agenda, this is a policy agenda and also a research agenda. The issues to explore include which parts of the benefit-sharing approach used during Soviet times could be viable in the political economy of today, how sovereign agendas influence development along the interconnected water, energy, and food nexus, what is hindering a broader scope and interest for increased collaboration in the water, energy, and food nexus amongst Central Asian countries and societies, and what pragmatic steps could be taken to overcome them at a regional collaborative level. To conclude, I would say that Central Asian states have a very clear challenge today in the context of the changes that will likely ensue at the level of the international order and system. And this challenge is that of enhancing their regional grouping at a time of crumbling global links that can work at the benefit of common leverage vis-à-vis their neighbors, namely China and Russia, but also others, but also at the level of integrated regional dynamics, stability, as well as the benefit of human security and sustainable development for the people and communities in Central Asia. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor. I'm sure that our Kazakh colleagues found it very interesting to listen from an outsider's perspective on what is Kazakhstan's role and what it should do to improve regional integration. So it's always interesting to see what others think of us. And we are looking forward to hear Professor Timur Shaimergenov. You have the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Do you listen to me? It's okay. Can you hear me? Huh?
Yes.
Okay. Well. Thank you so much. Dear Excellencies, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Institute of Diplomacy in Academy of Public Administration under the President of Kazakhstan, I would love to welcome you today. It's a very interesting event, and I listened to all the speakers before, so I decided to divide my speech into parts. In the first, it will be just introduction, and in the second, I will share with my reflections on Central Asia that my colleague just spoken about. So when we speak about the relations between Kazakhstan and Portugal, what can I say? I can say just one thing. Our countries have huge and still unrealized potential for economic, cultural, and humanitarian cooperation. We have a lot of things to do together. It's very interesting that in Portugal, there are experts who really research our region, our country, interested in us. So in our country, we have not so much people who know much about Portugal, so this is the thing that we have to do. So Kazakhstan is the most dynamic developing countries in Eurasia. We are focused on growth and further development. In our multi-vector foreign policy, we seek for new effective partners, and Portugal is one of them. We need to take into account the huge experience of Portugal in the field of light industries, agriculture, tourism, and green technologies. It's important to know the huge capacity of Portugal in the sector of creative economies, like art, like fashion, like media and others. All these areas are priorities in Kazakhstan today, so we have to have a great interest in developing cooperation in these spheres. I'm sure that most of economic issues will find its solution in cooperation of economic organizations and businesses. In my own experience, just personally, I have visited Portugal twice, and particular city of Lisbon. So what impressions do I have from Portugal? I respect your country. I respect your history, huge history. I love your very warm and friendly people and your culture. I'm sure that our citizens need to visit Portugal more often. Your country is very interesting and stands out among other European nations, just as a fact. It's my own opinion. I'm sure that citizens of Portugal will be interested in bright history and diversified culture of Kazakhstan too. What we need more information about each other. So we just heard with Teddy's today, and I think that we need to spread more information about our history, culture, geography, and etc. Today, I represent the Institute of Diplomacy of Academy of Public Administration and the President of Kazakhstan. So just would like to say that our institutions do the same job. We educate and train professionals in the field of foreign policy and diplomacy. So it was very interesting to hear my colleague about Central Asia, about reflections on our development. I will just add some few issues, maybe just to create more understanding what's going on now in our region. Today, Central Asia is on the crossroads, I would say that, because there are several trends that form our geopolitical and geoeconomical position in the global world, in Eurasia in particular. So if to say in kind of humor, if you look at Western media, you will find there are several bad guys, several bad countries, that in negative views about Russia, China, Iran, and Afghanistan. So it's all around us, like we really deal with all the bad guys, and we deal very effectively. It's a kind of argument that our multi-vector foreign policy really works. It's really effective. We do not survive. We take our benefits from all the countries, and for all these countries, we are strategic partners. So they really take care about us, and that's why. So in Central Asia, we live through a change of elites, political elites. So we cannot say that Central Asia is post-Soviet, because the ties with post-Soviet area is already been broken. We have new generation of young people who were born in the independence, who have different mindset, who don't know anything about USSR, and their perception of Russia, perception of the neighbors, extremely different. We call it a sovereign generation. It's one thing. Central Asia changes economically. So if you take a look at Kazakhstan, we strive for digitalization, for new technologies, for innovative economies. We invest a lot in green technologies. So we try to create our capacity for the future and to enter the top 30 developed countries in the world in the next 20, 30 years. So it's very ambitious, we understand it, but we will try to do our best. Our neighbors in a little bit different positions. So they have currently challenges with the poverty, with some kind of internal uncertainties, with the issues on the borders. You can see, about the several conflicts between our neighbors, about undefined borders between them. So there will be a challenge for internal cooperation between Kazakhstan and Central Asia, because our economies become very different at all, so different directions, different vectors. So we several years we have internal dialogue between the head of states. This is very effective dialogue for Central Asian future. And if you take a look in international trends, so Central Asia becomes more and more important in the context of Eurasian communications. For example, about the Belt and Road initiative, so-called modern Silk Road. So this is our history. 2,000 years ago, Kazakhstan or Kazakh nation was a part of huge process of Great Silk Road from Asia to Europe. So today we do the same, absolutely, in a partnership with China. We allow to move a lot of goods. About 70% of all the goods from Asia to Europe move through territory of Kazakhstan. So Kazakhstan is a huge land bridge to Europe. We integrated 3 different oceans: Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans are connected with the railroads. And the heart of this railroad hub is Kazakhstan. So it's absolutely different geoeconomic positioning. So that will change the role of Kazakhstan in continental processes in the next couple of years. So Central Asia in a huge change. So there are internal and external trends that really affect on our development, on the future. So it's very interesting to talk with Portuguese experts, because it's not so often when people from Portugal speak about Central Asia, because for my own experience, it's the first time it's true, because we know a lot about experts from UK, Germany, the United States, like France. So there are a lot of think tankers which are occupied with our region. So this is really innovation in our research. And, I think your contribution will be very important, because it's not politically grounded. You are really independent researcher with absolutely independent view. And this is very important and significant for us. I think that with my colleague, Professor Marcos Farias Ferreira, we will find a lot of opportunities to talk and organize maybe some webinars more, to organize some conferences between our think tankers. So to talk more about what in Lisbon foreign policy makers think about Central Asia and Kazakhstan. And I think that we need to introduce Kazakhstan more in Lisbon, in Portuguese business, because as I said, there are a lot of common things to talk about, and there are a lot of connections that still undeveloped. So thanks a lot to all who organized this webinar, who contribute in this dialogue. I think that in next coming years, it will bring more results. For example, returning that we do the same job as the Institutes of Diplomacy. So we need to speak more about cooperation between institutions, because you educate your future or current diplomats and you form their mindset, perception of different regions, so we can give them a right understanding what's going on in Central Asia. Our Institute of Diplomacy can be open window for you to watch clearly what's going on in Central Eurasia. So we are very open for cooperation with you. And by the way, we can have some exchange educational programs and to take the best in our experience. By the way, some of our PhD students who are here today in the Teams meeting are very interested in having internship in Portuguese Institute of Diplomacy. So maybe after this webinar, we can just start and to send a couple of people to Lisbon. I just shared with them with my own experience about Lisbon. I was very impressed. After 2 times visiting, so it was true. So just impacted their mindset that you need to change the country that they have chosen and to go to Portugal, because it will be very effective because of not only educational training, but just overall general development of your personality. So thank you so much, and we are very open for cooperation. If you have any kind of questions, we are open to answer them. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor, as well. And of course, we are very welcome. We are very open to any form of further cooperation, of course, with you. I open now the floor for questions. As I said previously, you can either write them in the chat box or use the tool raise your hand. And I'm going to take advantage of my position as moderator to ask the first question. Which is regarding both of you and also Minister Vassilenko. You insisted upon the need of regional integration in order to balance the role of Central Asian countries with the superpowers. What are the challenges to this regional integration of the Central Asian countries?
Well, I don't.
Okay.
Professor Timur, maybe you could start. Since,
yeah, of course.
No, please. The floor to my colleague, Professor Marcos, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So, yeah, I think that the big challenge is to resume regional cooperation. As I said before, during Soviet times, there was a kind of unity working, not always for the best, but even so, these 5 countries worked as one, as an unity, for instance, in energy terms. So there was an integrated electric grid, and there was some complementarity among them, taking in consideration all these natural resources: water, gas, and oil. So after independence, it was like a mechanical. There was a mechanical move towards sovereignty and individuality, and these common resources and common infrastructure was abandoned, and it was given not so much importance as countries decided to opt for individual strategies. And this disruption in integrated systems fueled ethnic disputes and also border disputes that led some of these countries also to almost to open war, like in the case of Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, sometimes during or throughout these 30 years. So energy complementarity is a very pressing issue today, also because of what we are living. And so the energy domain is a crucial domain where these 5 countries could, and I think they are already resuming these regional working, but they can take advantage of these huge resources that they possess, not only for consolidating statehood and their national interests, but to consolidate their group leverage. I think my intervention was very much centered on group leverage, because apart from the advantages that these 5 countries have on feeding their national interests, the group logic, I think, gives them important resources vis-a-vis the great powers. So in a time that in which we see that is important to be independent from great power rivalry, regional logics and the consolidation of regional logics is very important. I think in Central Asia, Central Asia is a very good example of these, as these countries have not been able to consolidate this group leverage in the last 30 years, and for many reasons, for regime reasons, for some distrust reasons, but the institutional way could be a way of taking this leverage to another plane, to another level, because institutions are, as I mentioned, are a way of starting talking about what we even disagree on. So taking institutions seriously is very important. And I think, as my colleague remarked, as new generations come to power, I think they are more sensitive to the importance of institutions. It doesn't mean that that some tensions will disappear overnight, or that everyone will start having the same interests. Politics does not happen like this, but I'm absolutely sure that new generations coming to politics will understand that their common future will be best served by working together in collective institutions. The problem, just to finish this intervention, the problem is that in the last 30 years, institutions have been promoted by China or Russia, and it has been difficult to establish a logic, a 5-country logic. And I think this is the next step, the next level that Central Asia must come to, is to organize themselves as a group, not, of course, maintaining also the other institutions, the organization of the Common Security Treaty, the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement. All of these institutions are very, very important because they link the great powers with the region, but a kind of regional integration by common institutions will have will be a very powerful instrument for human security, sustainable development, but also statehood consolidation. I think we cannot separate all these interests, consolidating statehood, but also the security of society, also the sustainable development are interconnected.
Thank you, Professor. Professor Timur, could you add to this? And also, I was thinking while Professor Marcos Ferreira was thinking about the importance of the role of institutions in this regional cooperation. What about OSCE? It has contributed?
OSCE, excuse me.
The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. Has it helped?
It depends. It depends. So let's start from that in definitions, inside Central Asia, we are very careful and cautious about the definition. So mostly we do not use integration. Mostly we use cooperation. It's more kind of politically correct inside the region because after Soviet Union, all the countries are very careful to some kind of integration or to give more of own sovereignty to some other institutions. So that's the story. If we speak about integration in the future, of course, maybe, who knows? But today, the huge challenge is unsolved issue of borders between the countries. Inside Central Asia, Kazakhstan is the only country that solved all the border issues with all the neighbors, with Russia, with China, with Central Asian states. If you take the cases of Central Asian countries, today we can see during the year as our neighbors, Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan, they are in uncertainty zone because they cannot solve the issue of borders. It's very difficult because, you know, back to the change of generations, the perception of sovereignty is different. So young generations, they have own opinion on how the border must go between the two countries, you know. And it's very difficult to kind of bring some history to the negotiations and to speak about how it was in the Soviet Union because current generations, they don't know how it was, you know, like, and the ambitions of young generations are different in the region. So the first step to promote any kind of deeper cooperation in the region will be the solving the border issues. If you take a look at the speech of President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev in August meeting of the all Central Asian heads of states, you can see that he pointed it very seriously with border issue that all the countries must pay serious attention to with because it's one of the kind of challenges for our internal security. That's what we need to speak about. The kind of, if we speak about the political dialogue, it has very positive dynamic because several years we have kind of informal platform as kind of consultations of the heads of the states. All the presidents meet each other every year just to speak about internal development. If we speak about the foreign policy, you know, this is a very positive case too, because in Central Asia we have about maybe 10 different C5+1 formats. When 5 Central Asian countries, and for example, United States, Russia, China, European Union, India, South Korea, and Japan, speak about how to work with the region as a whole region. You know, like the 5 stands, you know, 5C plus some external player. So this is the example how our countries work together as a one group, as one team. So we have consolidated positions on some issues. So this is very positive. If we speak about economic issues, you know, it depends. You know, for example, in the region we have the only one example of trans-regional project that unites all the countries, 5 countries. You know, it's a gas pipeline from Turkmenistan to China. It really integrates all the countries because gas goes through through Uzbekistan, from Turkmenistan to Uzbekistan, to Kazakhstan, then to China. And there are 3 pipelines today, and the number 4 is being built today through Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. So Chinese energy project really unites everybody because all the countries receive the transition fee and some access to enormous capacity of Turkmenian gas. So this is energy case that my colleague, Professor Marcos, just told about this. So it really depends on the issues when we speak about cooperation inside the region. So if we speak about OSCE, so we need to take into account the history of this organization, and you know that Kazakhstan contributed a lot in calling the summit in the 21st century. It was in Astana in 2010, and it was the first and the last summit in 21st century. So we, as for Kazakhstan, our country is very interested in this organization. We see its positive impact, but it cannot solve inside issues and challenges. Just it can just because it can just give some consulting, just maybe some advising impact, but nothing more. The challenges of Central Asia lay in a different dimension today. So just a different story. But in any way, OSCE is a respectful organization in the region. So today in the region, there is no any organization that unites all the countries. Like when we speak about Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Turkmenistan is outside. It's not a member. Like when we speak about Eurasian Economic Union, so 3 countries are outside. Like when we speak about the military cooperation, like OECD, so OECD, so it's different story because Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, they are outsiders. Like so there is no any regional platform when we speak together. So maybe informal platforms like C5+1 or informal consultations between presidents of the states in the region are more effective for today, for current development, because the world is in transition and the region is in transition. So maybe with flexible platforms without kind of strict institutional rules and legislative kind of regulation is more effective for today, because several changes in the region and in the world really impact each other. So maybe it's all my own opinions. It helps.
Absolutely, thank you so much. When you were speaking about the challenge of water, and I was thinking about we have the same problem with our only terrestrial neighbor who is Spain, and from Spain come the 3 main rivers that supply Portugal. So we had to solve this question with them, and we signed the convention, an international treaty, and it has been working. We are not dry. So maybe we can share this experience with you, and I will pass to the questions that are coming up in the chat box from Maria Beatriz Marquilhas. Thank you for the presentations. The shortage of water resources was one of the main problems affecting the Central Asian region. What strategies and policies is Kazakhstan adopting to face it? Well, more or less you've answered it, but if you want to add something else
about the water.
Yes.
The water is something what we need to solve in the next coming years, because there are several dimensions of water issue in Central Asia. The first is inside region water, rivers that start from Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and go down to Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. It's one case. There is another one. Some of the big rivers start in China and go to Kazakhstan, to our country, and it really has kind of some issues because China is too huge, and it's arguments that we have a huge population and our demography kind of requires that we need more water. Like these negotiations is ongoing process. There is a positive trend in it. So the positive is that China is ready to talk about and to negotiate with issue, to discuss this issue, and it really takes care about our concerns in the water issue. And another issue in Central Asia is, that we have with Aral Sea that is being dried because of the mistake of Soviet scientists. Because of the mistakes in agriculture in Uzbekistan, they built some dams and stopped the water going to Aral, and it really destroyed this huge sea with a lot of fishing industry. Today is just little pools, during 30 years, we invested a lot of money and saved some, we call this a small Aral, and we have huge ecological challenges because of it. A lot of people had to migrate from the region. We have some other ecological challenges today, but Kazakhstan invests a lot, and we saved with little Aral pool, and we hope that we could develop it with some new technologies. Maybe what we need is what we could have is from Portugal's new experience negotiations, how you could find this compromise with Spain, because it's Spain is a huge country for you and just your neighbor. If you have some historical things, but different story that you have European Union basis. You have some and you have NATO bases, different stories maybe. But your consultation and your experience will be very helpful, I think. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor. Professor Marcos Ferreira, would you like to add something on the water issue?
Well, it's just that, like my colleague said, water management is a very important issue in many parts of the world. There are many models. There are very technocratic political models about how to manage regionally this challenge. So again, Central Asia as a region that has not yet managed to overcome tensions should also learn from other regions. So this political debate and political conciliation should come with lessons learned from other parts of the world. Portugal and Spain are not the only grouping that is engaged in this thing, and I should also stress here that these problems will increase with these problems with
climate change.
With climate change. Thank you. With climate change, so it's not something that we solve, or that states solve once and for all. So climate change will present new challenges, and this political consultation, negotiation will have to go on forever.
Thank you, Professor. I will proceed to read the second question on the chat. Many thanks. The near future may be defined by a deglobalization process with reshoring in global supply chains, less international trade volumes, and decoupling between East and West economies. Could, in this case, the Kazakhstan pivoting strategic position still be of value? Professor Timur.
I would argue with this messages, because Kazakhstan's case demonstrates absolutely different story. Because every year, the Belt and Road Initiative was announced in 2013, so 9 years ago. And that time, 10 years ago, nobody believed in this. So nobody believed in land bridge will work. But what we can see that today, previous year, we had 20,000 different trains that moved to Europe from China and back. 20,000 trains, it means that about 70 trains per day cross the territory of Kazakhstan. If we remember, for example, 2015, it was just only one train in 2 weeks. So you can see the dynamic growth, and the dynamic doubles every year. So there is a huge interest in a very short transportation route between Asia and Europe. Because in Eurasia, we have 3 centers of economic activity. So it's Asia, Europe, and Middle East. So all these regions are interconnected between each other through our railroad system. And another kind of indicators that kind of new globalization works, or kind of interregional cooperation really grows, that Kazakhstan's railroad area became profitable. Always it was always looked money from the government to be supported, but several years it earns the money. It becomes effective. It's about $5 billion of US dollars annually. So huge money are coming. And if you take a look at the results of visits of President of China Xi Jinping in September, so one of the agreement was to consider to build a third railroad from China to Kazakhstan, then to Europe. It means that the volume of trade moving from Asia to Europe will grow. So, and in China, they need more transportation capacity to move its goods to the West and to Middle East. So I think that this is very optimistic scenarios, because you take a look at, for example, we all consider some risks from Ukrainian conflict, that it will impact negatively to the transportation cooperation. But you can see that there is about 9 months already the conflict is going on, but the Silk Road still exists. Why? Because it's very flexible in the corridors. And if you take a look at the map of the international corridors of Silk Road, it has multiple directions. So several directions through Russia are stopped now because of the sanctions, but Kazakhstan is crossed by about 11 different corridors. So another 9 will work in any way. So, and today, if you take a look at President Tokayev's speeches, he promotes Trans-Caspian international corridor through China to Europe. So we promote and we lobby with a project because it's very profitable. And take a look, all the countries which participate in this transportation cooperation, they receive the profits. For example, a lot of our neighbors, for example, Central Asian neighbors, they would love to participate in this Silk Road, but just because of the geography, they cannot. The Kazakhstan is successful and it's we're successful because of our geography and multi-vector policy. Our multi-vector policy, today we receive the financial profit from our balanced position in the world. So our good cooperation with all the neighbors, with all the countries, means that no any train, no any kind of good will be stopped somewhere on the border where there is a stamp from Kazakhstan. This is a real effect of multi-vector, positive and constructive, friendly foreign policy. So we started to receive the commercial beneficial. So there are a lot of evidences about with that deglobalization doesn't work. So we promote we call it globalization with an Eastern face, like it's a different positioning. So maybe Westernization failed. I agree that maybe American model of globalization really failed maybe, but there is a Asian globalization. So, and it's really focused on Europe, and where Portugal can be a part of this dialogue.
Can I just?
Thanks so much. Yes, Professor Marcos. Yes.
Well, I understand the optimism, and I share this. And I don't share the optimism, but I can see the optimism. And why do I not share the optimism? Because I'm seeing and we are witnessing every day this very real trend in American foreign policy, trying to decouple the West, the United States and Europe from China and from business with China. I think this is a trend that the United States will want to pursue, irrespective of democratic presidents or Republican presidents. We have seen these started with Trump, and Joe Biden has been stressing this trend very, very much. So this realization by the United States that globalization is becoming Asian globalization, and the United States is losing in this process. And so this Mackinderist thought that the United States must have their feet in Eurasia and must decouple Chinese interests from what is going on in Europe. So I think this tension will aggravate, and of course it will depend how Europe as a whole, as a group, will respond to this strategy and this dynamic. I think we will see different perspectives in Europe, within Europe. So some will follow the United States, some won't follow the United States, because decoupling China and Chinese business from Europe will have a lot of will bring a lot of chaos and a lot of bad consequences for the established supply chains and everything that goes around it. So, but it will be a source of trouble and a new source of tension in the years to come. So that's why I'm saying that in case this deglobalization will happen in some degree or at some degree, regional groupings will have more importance in the future. If deglobalization will happen at some degree, regional groupings will have more importance. Central Asia, Europe, Latin America, ASEAN, and states and societies must be prepared at some point to reorient their trade and supply chains to a more regional logic. So that's I think that's what the question tried to reflect on. It's what will go on, what will happen if deglobalization will happen at some level and at some point. How global strategies will have to change and adapt to more regional dynamics.
Thank you so much, Professor Marcos. I agree about decoupling, about U.S. policy. Just maybe I will add one thing. As you know, in next coming days, the leader of Germany will visit China just after re-election of Xi Jinping. So it's a message that Europe is very interested in China, and especially in Chinese huge market.
Well, it's a message from Germany, not from Europe.
Germany, but Germany is a key element of Silk Road, and it's kind of the biggest economy in Europe. Can you agree with me? Are you agree with me that it's the biggest economy in Europe? So we have to take into account, and it's kind of one of the beneficiaries of Silk Road, because the first train from China to Europe was from China to Germany. It was a Duisburg seaport. And for example, take a look at Mr. Xi Jinping. He visited Kazakhstan as the first country after kind of his after pandemic, kind of stopping of diplomacy, and so when he couldn't go out. So in September, it was his first foreign visit, and he visited to Kazakhstan. It's again as a message that he wants to promote Silk Road, because next year will be a 10 years anniversary of this idea. It works, it brings money. And the visit of German leader to China, it's one more message that Europe wants to have access to China's huge market. You know, we understand that America will try to impact this kind of process, but it had 9 years to impact it. It cannot, because the commercial benefits are too huge, and the United States cannot offer some alternative. The markets in China and US are changing, and in next 10 years, maybe 20 years, China will be economy #1, so it will have different impacts in Eurasia, and we will have maybe some huge regionalism, you know, like where Silk Road will play some key role. I understand that there are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of risks, but for my optimism, you know, take a look at Ukrainian war that impacted on several routes, but still Silk Road works on. So it's very flexible, you know. Why Silk Road alive? Because it's very flexible. There is no strict program, there is no strict rules, there is no strict geography. It's like a water that flows and finds the way. So that's why it really very fast adapts to any kind of external challenges. That's why we are very optimistic. So. But I agree about all the kind of pessimistic aspects that you mentioned. Absolutely, you are right.
Thank you so much. We are coming to the end of our time, but we have one last question. Are you available to answer? Can I read it from the chat? Yes? Okay. So it's from Sebastião Sabino. Thank you so much for the presentations. My question concerns the EU, its sanctions on Russia, and the cooperation with Kazakhstan. In Denmark, it was reported a 90% increase in companies authorized to trade with Kazakhstan and an increase of 285% in exports volume to the country since the war in Ukraine this year. This raised fears of Kazakhstan possibly being used as a transit country to Russia, considering that the EU is a foreign policy priority of Kazakhstan and the notable efforts already made by Astana to abide by these sanctions? Can this reported increase be seen instead as a sign of deepening cooperation? Professor Timur.
You know, if you speak about the sanctions and all this situation happening around Kazakhstan, you know, any crisis has two sides, you know, like it poses some challenges and it opens the options, you know. So we already are stressed by challenges, but we see new options that are opened because we understand that European business would love to continue to work with Russia. It's a huge market in any way. So 140 millions of people with oil and gas money in any way. So Russia is very promising partner. So we understand that and Kazakhstan is a good hub because we cannot stop cooperating with Russia because of the Eurasian Economic Union. We have close economic, political, cultural links that you know there isn't any sanction that can stop it. You know, we cannot stop our cooperation just because of the geography. 7,000 of kilometers of joint border. You know, like you cannot stop it, close it, or whatever. So you know, and of course, if we take a look at people-to-people communication, so it's another bridge between our economies, you know, like even if on the governmental level we do not support kind of how to say that the black export to Russia or wherever, we follow all the kind of international regulations and rules. But when we look at the people-to-people communication on a private sector, on a private level, there is no any restriction that will stop you to take something in Kazakhstan and to bring something to Russia in a private way. There is no any law. Formally, it's exporting, but informally, it's kind of when you take something for private use, you move it to Russia, sell it there. So how you can call it? You know, like it's very difficult to control, just impossible. And today, Kazakhstan really benefits from with all these sanctions because there are a lot of Russian companies that move its business to Kazakhstan because they really want to survive, to be a part of this kind of supply chain, all these financial exchanges, because all financial systems work in Kazakhstan normally. So it's not only about some Western companies or Asian companies move to Kazakhstan, even Russian, they move. So maybe in next coming years, we will try to not to survive, but to benefit much from all this chaos that is going on in Eurasia. You know, any conflict, as I said, any war, it has double sides. You know, like one is a conflict. We saw negative results with that, but from another side is always a business. You know, if you take a look at the history, any war is a business for military suppliers and for economic suppliers. So it's we cannot avoid that. That's kind of real political, I would say that. So Kazakhstan has own national interests because we benefit from all this cooperation, and of course we would love to support our Russian neighbor in some ways, you know, like because if Russia falls, it will be a critical challenge for our country, you know, like, and with kind of people-to-people export or whatever, tries to kind of balance stability in Russia in some ways. So given a place to Russian business in Kazakhstan, it's again a stability. Because in some ways, I don't know how you perceive it in European Union, but we speak from the perspective that Russia is our neighbor, and you cannot. It's better to have a good relations with neighbors. This is a policy. With the concept of policy in Kazakhstan, we have very good relations with all the neighbors. We understand that history has cycles. And sometimes your neighbors are in a bad situation, like now we see, but tomorrow the situation will change again. If we take a look at the history of Western and Russian relations, you always had different cycles, you know, like when you had good relations, bad relations, you know, but we are neighbors. We cannot follow all these cycles in any situation. We must follow some kind of positive scenario, and to see some positive things even in the very bad scenarios, you know, like we must support each other. So like if it's understandable for you, like. because I understand that your perception of Russia as a kind of from perspective of Ukraine, it's a different story. We understand Ukraine. We really support Ukraine in this situation. We have sent a lot of humanitarian aid to Ukrainian people. There are a lot of support to Ukraine, but we cannot avoid that Russia is our neighbor. So.
Of course. Thank you so much. Professor Marcos Ferreira, would you like to add something?
Well, I don't have anything else to add. Just a remark, just underline what my colleague just said at the end of his intervention. I think we have to look at this other perspective. So neighbors must do everything they can to maintain a good, balanced relationship with each other.
Of course, of course.
Anyway, I see that we have a lot of things to discuss, and I think that we will have a continuation of this discussion.
I do hope so. I do hope so. So we pass our time, and I would very much like to thank both our keynote speakers. It was a very, very interesting discussion. Also to thank all the participants that were here attending this webinar. I wanted to say also that it is recorded and that we will share the file with the Kazakhstan Academy also, and it will be available on our website at Instituto Diplomático. And thank you so much. And exactly as you say, Professor Timur, we still have a lot to discuss. and I hope this was the first of many. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.